hand over there. Does everybody know Carol? The best clerk of session you've ever had in your life. Okay, she's the only one you've ever known, but I've been in lots of churches, and she does great work here. So glad to get to work with you this time. Yeah. We begin our meeting with prayer. Let's pray together. Loving God, we are thankful that we can be here in your presence, and that in the time we spend with one another, that you are here with your Spirit to guide and to lead us in this time. So help us listen well and help us follow well. Bring us joy and new beginnings in this time together. Through Christ we pray. Amen. From the session now, we get an introduction to all the reports. Come on up.
Hello, my name's Betty Kramer. I'm serving currently as an elder for the session here at church. I'm going to give you a little brief lesson on all things government for the Presbyterian Church. For people who haven't been members their whole life, they may not know how the structure works. I'm going to try to make it as brief as I can. So during the past several years, First Presbyterian Church has seen a decrease in attendance and a related decrease in financial support for the work of this church. This trend has been felt throughout organized religions during recent times, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been harmful locally, nationally, and internationally. So first, let's review what is a session. Our church has a representative form of government, and not just First Presbyterian, but the Presbyterian Church at large. Church members are elected by the congregation to serve as elders, which are what the members of the session are called. There has to be at least 2 members of session. Our church has 14, including a youth representative, as well as the minister and associate pastor of our church. Each Presbyterian church then belongs to a presbytery. The presbytery is a regional governing body made up of all the local churches. There are 170 presbyteries in the PCUSA, and then a group of presbyteries becomes a synod, and there are 16 synods in the PCUSA. So that's kind of how the representation goes. In January of 22, the finance team requested that the session, the group of 14 plus the ministers, address financial concerns. Some research was completed by our 2 pastors, and due to cost concerns, we went to the Presbyterian Foundation for assistance. Free of charge, they came and sort of reviewed how things were going at our church. In addition to these financial concerns, several members of the church came to a couple of the session members in January of 22 with concerns about dwindling attendance and an inability to meet our financial obligations. A letter of concern signed by 3 session members was sent to the presbytery seeking advice from the presbytery on such issues. With the agreement of the pastors, the presbytery sent 2 members of the Commission on Ministry to visit our session and see what help they could offer. Through these 2 different avenues, the session began a discernment process, a thinking process, if you will, to seek answers. So the first thing we did was we had the listening sessions, and I'm hopeful that most of you people who stayed for the congregational meeting probably were at the listening sessions. But it was a chance for people to say what they were thinking. Presbyterians are traditionally very polite people, and they tend not to say what they're thinking. They kind of vote with their wallet or with their feet. And so the listening sessions were an opportunity for people maybe to say what they wanted to say, but had always been afraid to. Our former pastor, Marvin Lindsay, helped us set up this process and the discernment process. He'd also been seeking a new call for a different ministry and moved during the process, but he didn't move because of the process. We wanted people to understand that. But the bleak reality is that our discernment showed that our income is not sufficient to meet the current budget needs of our church. Just like in your home, our income and outflow must match. If income does not show an increase, then difficult decisions will need to be made by the session and our church membership regarding places to spend less by cutting programs, mission, or personnel. That is the bleak reality. But there's hope. During our discernment, we were energized by the goodness and the good things that our church is accomplishing in mission. the joy that the congregation receives as we love and support and care for one another, the inspiration we receive from worship and learning together, and the hope we feel in new possibilities. We found ourselves laughing together, listening to one another, speaking the truth, and challenging assumptions. Then we were able to name our core purpose. It was much harder than we imagined because the session met several different times and tried to come up with 6 words that defined our church, which is much harder than you think. But basically, we boiled it down to our church worships God, nurtures faith, and serves our neighbors. So how do we begin to achieve this core process? Each session member leads a team of church members to focus and carry out one aspect of the work of our church. A representative from each of these teams is here today to share with you their plans to work on the recommendations that came to light after these listening sessions. These same reports are also in the nice handout that Bob Swanson gave you. So one at a time, each of the team members will come up and give you a brief report from their team, which, is a committee. This will involve all members of the church to try to meet the goals, and your session invites you to join a team, especially outreach. This will involve helping FPC grow and thrive in the new reality that is our church today. This is not a report that will sit on a shelf, like Woody said. You asked us to make some decisions and to take action, and we have done that. You will notice throughout the report of work already being done to bring actions to life, plus many that have already been achieved. So I guess one at a time, I'll just call the teams up. First, I'd like to call for children and family team and the youth teams, Emily Reynolds and Ann O'Brien, who work tirelessly for the kids in our church. They'll give their report.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am the session elder on Children and Families Ministry team, and Ann is our youth ministry team elder. So we looked at all of the listening session reports, both of our teams did, and we compiled what you see in front of you. We were really excited and celebrated the fact that the report from listening sessions celebrated Audra and all of the work that she's been doing for children and youth in our church, so that was a really big positive for our team. You will notice that some of the things in our report, such as offering adult studies during Sunday school hour, changing the Sunday school morning time, and adjusting worship, all came kind of from our team's discussions. We decided that in order for children to attend Sunday school, the morning needed to be a shorter schedule for families. We also wanted to offer things for grown-ups so that they would want to be here and bring their children at the same time. We've also started to offer intergenerational events and morning classes. You know that we've done the Pentecost celebration that happened. It's not listed underneath there, but it's one of them that's pictured. And then we've also done, ice cream pear social. We worked with other teams on the back to school breakfast. We're working on intergenerational offerings, and our Sunday school class is also intergenerational for youth and adults. Let's see what else. Reconstitute Children and Bells is underneath there. You'll also see that later in the report underneath worship. That is something that our teams have discussed. There is a stipend for someone who wants to do children's music, and we're currently looking for someone who might be interested in that work. However, we really want to look for increased attendance from children and youth in Sundays before that becomes an offering. Let's see what else. Audra is starting to invite youth from Trinity and Korean and Agape. She said she started this in spring of 2021, inviting them, and several youth from Trinity and Korean congregation participated in things the past year. Let's see, exploring more youth projects. Audra shared that she hasn't been able to do this quite yet. She's still continuing to reach out and making one-on-one contact with our families from FPC who aren't regularly participating in events, and she's also continuing to invite youth and children from Trinity, Korean congregation, and Agape to participate. Making the church more welcoming for children and families. There's a lot of things listed, but if you turned around and looked behind you during church this morning, that area behind us with the children's tables was full of children using the children's tables and materials that Audra provides. The other thing it says is we were asked to reach out to children and youth Audra has done that. She's made a personal contact with all families on our rolls and asked for program suggestions and communication preferences. She sends out weekly emails to families. If you are a youth or a child in church and your parents, you get a Friday email from Audra about everything that's going on. And then she continues to post on social media and also sends postcards to invite to church events. Most recently, she sent postcards about confirmation classes to all of our youth that are that age. Number 9 says working towards a we language rather than you or me. Both of our teams express this very strongly, that the work of children and youth in the church is not just for the people on these 2 teams, because we can't do it all, and that all ages are welcome to participate. We had several volunteers. Alan and Richard participated in VBS for the first time this summer, and we really greatly appreciated their help. And I think it was a positive experience for both of you. I wasn't here because my family was sick at that time. But anytime that you see an offering to work with children and youth, we are very welcoming, and we'll take all the help we can get. And then we're just continuing to pray for the children and youth and families in this church. If anybody has any questions, we take them now. Thank you. Let's see who's next, Betty. We're going straight in order. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. They've kept Sunday school, Vacation Bible School, everything going, and they work hard. Next on my list, I don't know if it's in the right order, but I have the deacons. Yeah, okay, deacons. And I'm not sure who's going to speak for the deacons. Amanda Nell, Brenda Kincaid, Joe Weston, Carolyn Johnson, all of the above.
Come, friends. I think I'm the only one speaking. I pulled that stick. No. Right. But we wanted to come up here. Joe and I were co-moderators of deacons, and then we rotated off that role in the spring, and then Carolyn and Brenda were kind enough to agree to take on leadership and are doing a fantastic job with our deacons this year. I just have some prepared statements. As you can see, there's really just a question that was posed here from the listening sessions. And so I think one issue defined in the discernment process really regarding deacons was the need to better understand what we do and how that relates to the pastor's work and how that is all coordinated in terms of congregational care. So in terms of the questions posed, how many deacons does our church have? We have 21, currently 18 serving, but there are up to 21 positions that can be there. So there are that number of flocks. As you know, we have lots of folks on our rolls, so that's about, I think we said 24 or something like that, or 500 total folks on the rolls. So that means cards, outreach, and communication to folks. Are we providing sufficient pastoral care? We hope so, but we also know we can always do more. And in terms of coordinating that with the pastoral care with our pastors, there is lots of communication, lots of emails, phone calls, and things to make sure that we're communicating back and forth with everyone. We'll continue to look at this and provide additional information to the session and to the congregation about the work that we do. But I do want to highlight some of the work that has been done and continues to be done. We do home and hospital visits. We have done a great new role with John, which is doing home communion with our homebound members. We provide meals through caring chefs. Many of you have done that to folks who have either experienced a loss or might be recovering from an illness or an injury. We also help people. We drive members to get groceries, go to doctor's appointments, and come to Sunday worship service. We also assist with funeral services and receptions and are a key backer with Coyote Hill, which is a local foster care home. So we do fundraisers and events and things to support that particular cause. So that's a little bit about the work that we do. This is an important ministry. We really, truly feel that this is a privilege and something that we've taken very seriously. It's a hard job, right? It's joyful. You get to celebrate baptisms and birthdays and all those wonderful things. But sometimes you're also with people at the end of their lives or when they're at their most vulnerable, facing an illness or something like that. So the work we do is so important, but also we feel very blessed to do that. So we certainly welcome your feedback for ways that we can continue to provide more care and more outreach to our church family. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So your deacons are the people, if you know somebody in the hospital, somebody who needs a phone call or a card, find out who your deacon is. They each have about 25 or 30 people in their flock, so they can't know everything all the time. Next, we're going to hear from the finance team, Alan Moore.
Morning. I know you guys are anxiously awaiting this section, given the number of comments from the listening section that were directed at finance, so it was a pretty long list. So I'll just say off the bat, we went item by item, the finance team did, through the whole listening section comments, and that is on copies there if you want to read it, or on a website someplace. And so first thing I wanted to do was kind of recognize who's on our team. So part of our team is Paul Murley, who's our church treasurer, and Fran Minch, who is our financial staff person and financial secretary. And then we have Joe Weston, Gail McCrae, Terry Christensen, Tom Smith, Bob Hull, and Nancy Thomas. Okay. You know, I didn't want to go item by item through the list that's on this paper, but we put a few things on the sheet that you've got in front of you. And these are things that finance team does annually. They're always doing this. The first item, support and provide information to session regarding the discernment project. That project was something that finance team requested that session enter into in some form to try to get a grasp on our financial system situation, and I think they've done that. And so you guys can read those things. I'm not going to go through them all, but just to tell you, the session, the people that are on there, we've had some people leave. People that are on there now and the people that have just come on deserve your appreciation, because they're doing the hard work and dealing with these issues that nobody else wants to deal with. And they don't necessarily want to deal with it. You know, if you've got all the money in the world, everybody's happy. If you're having financial struggles, nobody's happy, okay? And so that's where they're at. They're between a rock and a hard place. And I'm going to kind of lay that out for you just so everybody understands. Joe Weston wrote a great epistle article a few weeks ago, and we'll try to give more updates as we go through the budget process. So just a little history. Our budget last year, and pretty much the year before, was $750,000. Last year, during the stewardship campaign, pledges came in $110,000 less than they had been the year before. Now, they'd been declining, but that was a huge increase in people not pledging. And a lot of these people that didn't pledge and didn't give had done so, were some large donors. And they're just, we don't know where they are, we don't know who they are, and we don't know if they're going to pledge again or if they're just done. So the session has to deal with that because they don't know. And that puts us with our other income right now for this next year, we've got about less than $600,000 of probable income if pledges don't go down again. Budget $750, pledges less than $600. So that's like $160,000 deficit that we've got to try to figure out what to do about. Last year, that drop in pledges kind of took everybody by surprise. We had some carryover money that we had left from the year before that we used, and we used some reserves. This time around, we're not going to be able to do that unless, you know, the session decides they want to use reserves. The other side of this, and this is the hard place, we've got an HVAC system that's failing in the sanctuary. That's why we're all in here. And that's going to cost probably $500,000 to fix. We've also got an organ that needs $200,000 of the repair. Now that's $700,000 of capital improvements that we need to keep doing church over there. And so our reserves that are available now are about $750,000. Well, that money, a lot of it is committed to those projects, or could be. And of course, if you don't keep the air conditioning on or the organ playing, does anybody really want to have church over there? Okay? So this is what the session's facing. Do you keep the building in good shape? Then you've got a $160,000 shortfall potentially for the budget. Now, pledges could go up. Some of that $110,000 of pledges we lost last year might come back. But, you know, in our church, the only person that knows who gives what is the financial secretary. The pastors don't know, the session doesn't know, so they don't know when somebody's unhappy, what they're unhappy about, or if they've got problems that are causing them not to be able to give anymore. They just don't know. So they can't call on somebody and say, hey, what's the problem? And so the session's in a tough spot, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and hopefully pledges will come back up, but we're still probably going to be short some money. So I'll stop there and take any questions anybody has. Yes, we were. Oh, okay. So during COVID, did we get any, what was that called, Paul, ERC money? COVID relief money for employees to keep them employed. And yes, we did get some of that money. That money went into that. So we don't have that money anymore. We are getting some because we applied for some employment tax credit, and we're getting some of that money back. But I'm counting that in the reserve pot. Yep. So are we saving money in the short run because we're not paying the senior pastor? Yes and no. We're going to have an interim very soon, probably, and we're paying Woody. He's not free, okay? He's cheap, but he's not free. So, you know, there's going to be a little bit of carryover because of that probably, but it's not going to amount to a lot of money, we don't think. Oh, Sally. So Sally asked, are we, basically, do we have does the building generate additional money from renting it out or other uses? Yes. Is it a lot of money? No. We are presently, the finance team, Joe Weston and Nancy Thomas are presently looking at all the rates we charge for weddings, other events at church, and what the rents that we charge some of our tenants is to see if those should be increased. But I'm telling you, some of those groups cannot pay a lot of money. You know, the Korean church, the Agape people, we've got a Woodhaven group up here, and some other tenants. They don't pay a lot of money, but think about it. They're renting space that is kind of not functional for very many people. So the market demand for our space that we have is not real strong. So she asked if we could reach out to more groups to have concerts and make more money that way. And yeah, well, Joe is here someplace. Yeah. He'll put that on his list to check out. Yes. Yeah, good. Said First Baptist does that and has some success with it, so we'll check it out. Joe? Yeah, you know, we host. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, if they're deceased, you know, that's, I mean, we assume they're not going to give money anymore or pledge. Yeah, I mean, there's always some of that every year where people pass away and stop pledging, and Frank keeps track of that. We could know exactly how much that is, but you know, part of that's offset by, you know, some new members coming in, but yeah, that hurts. I mean, as the Presbyterian Foundation pointed out, and Betty kind of touched on it, you know, we're an older congregation. Most of the money that is given and pledged is from people over 60 years of age. Well, that number's declining, and that's a problem too. Anybody else? Yeah. Just a second.
Yeah, just to kind of amplify one thing you said, we have a $755,000 operating budget in our current year. If we do not increase our pledges for 2023, we're looking at starting January with about $150,000 or $160,000 deficit. So this is not something we can say, well, next July we'll figure this out. January 1's only 3 months away. And so the session has to make some good, sound decisions on how we're going to operate a balanced budget.
Yeah, because in the listening sessions, that's balanced budget is what everybody says they want, and you know, and everybody wants to stay in this facility and make it nice. One more, Ellen.
I was just going to say that we've got a paid-off building number one, which is fortunate. We had a building fund drive. And for our organ or some of these HVAC things, can we do a building drive again for a year where people would pledge toward it? Just a thought.
That's on our list of something to talk to session about from the finance team. We could have a capital campaign for either the Oregon or the HVAC equipment. We have $160,000 that was raised from the last capital campaign for HVAC repairs. At that time, we didn't get the 500, so we've held that as a reserve for HVAC repairs, and so that's there. But yeah, we could do another capital campaign. We could borrow money. We could do a lot of things, but you know, if you borrow money, somebody wants you to pay it back, and our budget really won't take additional expenses at this point. Thanks.
I would say Alan is on the hardest team in the church right now. So thank you, Alan and Mr. Murley and Joe Weston and all the people who have calculators and aren't afraid to use them. You have a question?
I just want to say one thing also. I think one thing, of course, personnel will be talking soon too. We need to remember that we employ a decent staff in this church, and there's a big cost of living that a lot of us have incurred this year. And so when we're thinking about deficits and we want balanced budgets, though, those people deserve to be paid a fair wage. Things get more expensive, so that's not just the building and the HVAC that we need to consider as well.
That's true. That's true. And I'm going to give voice to one thing that probably at least one other person out here is thinking. I suggested that we downsize to be able to have the budget that meets the amount of money we have. And as a session, we decided that remaining at 16 Hitt Street was our priority. So if you're wondering why we're not downsizing, that's why. Just thought I'd put that out there. So I'd like to welcome Elaine Blodgett up. She's from Member Involvement. She's going to tell you all the opportunities you have to be involved. Can it wait till after?
I would have to say that I have been a member of the fun team. That's why I'm coming after this. The member involvement team. That's actually socially getting together with each other to have some fun. Last year, we decided that basically we had been doing nothing for 2 years. Most of us were in our houses, right? So now we want to get back on track. And where's the other member of this team? Yeah. The two of us have been working together to try to resurrect interest in the team that we have now, but we're the member involvement, our social team. That's trying to get together and actually have fun with the picnic that we had this fall. Pardon me? I don't know if we were that before, but I see member involvement team, MIT, MIT, that we're on. And we could use more people on our team. And we're the cheerful team, so you don't have to worry about, finance or anything like that. You want to talk a little bit? You've been organizing a lot of it.
Well, I want to say one thing. This document is wonderful. It's visually attractive. It has a feel of lightness and moving forward, and so the people that were involved in putting this together, thank you very much. And, Elaine has covered it. We need more members on our team, and we need to recruit more members for the other teams so we can do the work of this church in building back to where we want to be. And I think that's, and Elaine and I believe in keeping it simple for us, but I think there are a lot of things we can do that don't require superhuman effort that will bring this church together, and the picnic was one of them. And I do want to say that we increased the membership of this team by 50% today. Someone actually signed up. I won't name any names, but she knows who she is, and thank you very much.
Thank you, the fun team. They wanted to follow finance for a reason. Next, I'm going to ask John Montgomery, Dr. Montgomery, to come up. He'll be speaking about the work of our church in relationship to mission.
Thank you. It's very good to be here with all of you today and this discussion about how we're going to proceed with our members and with our church and with our mission. I appreciate you staying over, and let me just give you an idea of our mission ministry team and some of the thoughts and issues that we're dealing with. First, I wanted to also let you know who's on our team. Lori Wheeler, Cindy Mustard, Cindy and Steve Mickerson, and Maya Kincaid, and myself. Recently, the new chair, so I'm learning a lot. But I wanted to also share with you our purpose as it's described in the manual of operations for our church. So if you'll see the printed portion, the purpose of our mission ministry team is to support members of the church in carrying out Christ's ministry of love and justice as a congregation and as individuals through financial giving, personal witness, and action to care for the physical, financial, and spiritual needs of God's people. Our tasks and objectives are as written there. I won't go through all of them, but basically our team is to help support those that wish to participate in our local mission as well as maybe nationally or internationally, and to support to support those that want to give financially and in prayer as well. We also, as a mission team, try to look at the different local agencies that we do support, not only financially but hands-on. Kind of take a look at them periodically to make sure we're looking at their balance sheet, maybe their mission statements, and that they're really involved in the mission that we want to support. I have also included in the printout here the budget of the mission team so that people would be aware of kind of where the money for mission goes through our team. As you can see, in 2022 and 2021, it was essentially the same, $77,200. Now, that's a decrease, of course, from 2020 has been pointed out already that we've had some decline. I will point out a couple of items in this list. The first one is we do give one mission undesignated funds. That's the largest amount of monies that we give, and that goes to Presbytery, to our Synod, and to National PCUSA, or the Presbyterian Assembly, essentially. So most of our budget goes actually to them. And from there, it is utilized to support youth groups, youth camps, many other things that our national church and presbytery and synod are involved with. So I wanted you to have that information. As you can see, we also contribute to children's homes and services. We contribute, I did want to explain the emerging needs. It's a fund that has been set up in case there's a need for an emergency. Maybe a family needs some money for electrical bills, or they need a ticket somewhere by bus, something like that. They may come to our church offices and ask the pastors for some assistance, and that's what the emerging funds are for. And if it's a large amount of money, they'll come to our committee and we'll discuss it and see what we can do to help. The other is local benevolences. You can see that there's over $14,000 in the last 2 years for local benevolences. And then I included where some of that is partitioned out. If you can see on the next page, the Afghan Agape Fellowship, the Alzheimer's, the Central Missouri Food Bank, Voluntary Action Committee. There are a number of local benevolences that we support, especially financially, but also hands-on. We have members that work at Wardrobe. We have members that support the food bank or go and work at the food bank. We have members that work at Loaves and Fishes to serve meals. We have Saturday Morning Cafe that we support financially and hands-on. So the whole purpose of our mission ministry team is, again, to support those that wish to participate, not only local mission, but perhaps as we hopefully can get over COVID and start really coming back to a normal sense, that we could have some further mission projects here locally as well as regionally and maybe even nationally. That would be our hope. I did want to also mention the listening sessions were, many people had celebrations that they indicated they were happy that what our church does. And that's related here in the local benevolences. The other factor is, though, there were some opportunities mentioned and hopes, which is focused on opportunities for more local mission. I think that's going to be reflective of how many people are willing to actually do hands-on mission work to come and help support, for instance, Loaves and Fishes, Saturday Morning Cafe. There are opportunities for all of us to be involved, whether you can do it financially or whether you can hands-on. You're more than welcome to become involved at any of these missions. The other one was to improve our PR, public relations, on our mission accomplishments. So we will try to, through the newsletter and the epistle, we'll try to maybe focus a little more on getting that word out to everyone so they can read about it. And the other one was to define the missions that can be sustained considering our financial status. So as we go forward, we'll just have to keep looking at that, and we'll have to make decisions according to our financial status and how much money we can actually give to these local benevolences. And working at involving new participants, meaning new participants, maybe we have members that have not had an opportunity, or they have just not come to help with some of the local mission projects. So we will try to recruit, and I'm here to challenge you to see within yourself, pray about it, talk to your family about it, and see what it is you can do. We can use people that can maybe make food for Loaves and Fishes, can come and serve at Loaves and Fishes, Saturday Morning Cafe. Maybe you'd like to go work some at the Wardrobe or one of the food banks. We're here to help facilitate that. And then the other one was to be more inclusive. So I think we can all be more inclusive by inviting our fellow folks that worship here, the Koreans, the African Agape Fellowship. Maybe we can involve them, and our team will try to communicate with them and see if we can expand and be more inclusive that way. Any questions for me? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if the one great hour of sharing offering that is sent out of this church to help people throughout the world, is that represented here?
It's represented in the budget financial figures. There are other offerings too. There's a good half a dozen special offerings that are throughout the year that are designated for they're really restricted funds in the sense that those go to specific kinds of international, national relief or mission projects. That's my understanding, unless somebody else has an explanation. But we do have several special offerings that people can give extra funds and money. Mm-hmm. No, it's not reflected in these numbers here. Sorry.
So for the one mission undesignated, do we do a certain percentage of our budget to go nationally?
Yeah, I've made an inquiry of that because I think historically it had been some sort of a formula depending on your members that you had in your church. That's no longer true here. It's basically kind of been carried over that amount over the years, or the last few years. My understanding is no, there's not a formula dependent upon how many members you have. Not anymore.
Thank you very much, Dr. Montgomery. Next, we'll hear from the outreach team. I'd like to invite Jan Opoon up with our apologies because her name is misspelled in your program. There's only one A in Opoon. The second A, scratch that out. One A is enough.
When I taught, I said my name was like a spoon without the S to my students, and they remembered it, no problem at all. Our committee is composed of our chair, Betty Kramer, and my husband, Bob Opoon, and myself. We started out with a few more members, but they, I won't use defected, but yes, I will. No, they were recruited to go to some other places, and we're very happy because they are strong no matter what team they are on. The purpose of the outreach team is to promote the core task of evangelism by making disciples for Jesus Christ. Our work is carried out in cooperation with other teams relating to the welcoming of people in worship, offering new member classes, and reaching out into the community with invitations to join in worship, education, and special events at our church. You will see our action items for the year in the written report, which follows up on what we heard from the listening sessions and sessions retreat. I want to highlight just two of these that have had immediate impact, and in fact, they were going on last weekend, a couple of them. First is a major outreach accomplishment last month, September, in sponsoring a booth at the Pride Fest for the two-day event. Not only did we reach many people in a positive way at the event, but our volunteers at both events included two families, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, who are currently visitors at the church, but already wanted to help in our outreach to the community. So we've welcomed families and found a place for them to serve in welcoming others. This is a joy well worth celebrating. Secondly is that we have negotiated a creative contract with KBIA Radio that will fund more airtime at less money. Most of this is due to one of our church members, Bob Opoon, and he's not here today, but John Brynick had a lot to do with initiating this the last few years. The first event being highlighted coming up is the Hazeman Lecture, Saturday and Sunday, October 15th and 16th. 84 commercials will run starting October the 6th. Also to be included are interviews with Pastor John and this year's Hazeman speaker, Dr. Amy Paugh. We saw results from this advertising last year and are hoping that people will respond and be enriched this year as well. Like the other teams, we are small in numbers. We try to work mightily and carefully and detailedly, And so we would welcome anyone that might want to join this group. Even if you're not officially a member of the church, we are most welcoming. Any questions? Hi.
I'm coming. Okay, mine's not a question, but I did volunteer at the Pride Fest at the church booth. And during the couple of hours that I was there, we had several people come up and comment on how thankful they were that all the churches had tables there. And so I think this church needs to be proud that we were part of that, and that the church community is reaching out to people of various, well, a diverse community.
I do think a congregation needs to know that there were a couple of donors that stepped up and paid for the booth, which was $500 to be there. We tried to get in a year ago. It was short time, and I have people doing research this year to make the deadlines, and so thank you. Others?
For our $500 donation, we got our name on the back of the T-shirts and advertising, so First Presbyterian Church got out there lots of ways. Next, I would like to invite Bob Swanson, representing our personnel team. He's a busy man these days.
And there are three B's in Bob, and one of them is silent, and you can figure out which one. We did meet, and I'm going to try to keep this short because most of it is already written down. One of the several of the questions that were raised at the listening sessions concerned the duties of the personnel management team, and so it seemed like there was just some confusion about what we do. So those are printed at the bottom of that page. The second thing that I think was raised was the evaluation process. And we actually had started doing that and were working on it when Marvin decided to leave. So that has been put on hold. And I'll talk more about that later because I'm also going to give you an update on the interim pastor search committee. We have increased our size by one member, and Ellen Dent came back. Ellen was the chair a couple years ago, and she came back to help us. So the personnel committee is Ellen Dent, Jerry Thompson, Chrissy McCartney, Ian Buchanan, and we've been joined by Sharon Garrett and Beth Whitaker to become the interim pastor search committee. And so we have been working on that for about the past, seems like a very long time. It hasn't been that long. We did put together a ministry information form that went to the presbytery, and we have received, well, there are about 30 folks that are interested in a job like that, and we are going through the process of looking at those and meeting by Zoom with some of the candidates. We actually have a candidate coming in person on Tuesday to interview. So it's a promising candidate too. So hopefully this will wrap up pretty soon. And I think that the process from that is that the interim pastor search committee will make a recommendation to the session, and then the session will approve or disapprove. And there was also a question about the salary. Are we saving something since Marvin left? The protocol for calling an interim is to offer the same or a little bit less salary than the minister that left. So there's a possibility that we may save a little bit of money, but I think it's probably not too likely. Any questions?
Thank you, Bob. Brian Kincaid will be talking to us from the Planning, Evaluation, and Oversight team.
committee with the longest name and the shortest member list. I'm not on session. Eric Cunningham is the session member and the chair of our committee. Eric is in Canada or Montana, and so it didn't take much planning or evaluation to decide who was going to give the report. If you're a person who thinks about strategic planning or has done such in your job, if you're an introvert like me and likes to think about things like this, we could really use your help on our committee. We got big work coming up. You've heard a great deal about the discernment and the consideration that session's given over the summer to the big challenges that we face. And our budget that we will see and vote on and adopt here in the next 2 or 3 months really is the document that gives form and shape to those priorities of this congregation going forward. And as we do that, our strategic planning committee will be working with the session and the members' teams to help us lay that path for moving forward, to reach the strategic goals that we want to reach as a congregation and group. It'll be important work, it'll be interesting work, and we'd like you to work along with us. In the report, you'll see several of the questions that were put to the committee, assigned to our committee, and some of the things that have happened to this point. Besides probably the most important work of discerning our mission and where we're going in the future, I want to point out that we are 5 years, 6 years away from a remarkable achievement. Our congregation will be 200 years old, and it is an event that's worthy of great celebration. And to do it justice, we'll be looking to form, or recommending to session, that we form a task force to begin the preparation for this very important event. So if this sounds like something you might have interest in, be watching for it. It's not going to happen immediately. This is not on our doorstep, but you know and I know this time will pass very quickly. And so even though we are talking about 4 or 5 years to plan, it's work that's going to have to start very quickly. One other note with respect to the church directory, which I still use the old printed one, which, you know, looks better for me because it was 12 years old or something like that. If you haven't put your photo in, like I haven't, please do. The outreach team, is it done? Never mind. Thanks to the outreach team for putting it together, and we need to see maybe about how we can keep it refreshed and updated. Any questions for me? Thanks.
Yeah, the directory was supposed to be done in June, and people kept sending me stuff, and every time I entered stuff, it changed the margins. So finally in September, I said, I'm done. So I printed it out. There's a couple of typos, apparently, I've been told, which I need to correct. And then we're going to print it out. It'll be about 16 pages. If you gave me a picture, there's a picture. If you didn't, there isn't. And one page just has lots of names and addresses because we had, like, our folks at Lenore and stuff didn't get pictures taken. So when the directory comes out, the next day it will be wrong, but that's the way it goes. So the next committee is one of my favorite congregation members, Keith Kramer, is going to talk to you from property. And because of this property, we'll be celebrating our 36th anniversary in 2 weeks, so.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to recognize I'm the spokesperson, but certainly not the most important member. Tom Bell serves on the committee. Scott Buchanan, Joy Rushing, unless she has defected to the fund committee, is on property. And John is our staff person. I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail unless somebody wants me to. The list of things that property is involved in changes on an hourly basis. The big takeaways for our committee from this discernment process was, first, that the congregation loves this facility and they want to stay here, and that's great. So that gives us direction on what we do. And the other piece of the takeaway was the edict from session that we are going to stay in this building. So people love the building, want to stay here. Session says we are staying here, so that gives property direction. It is tough though, because the list of things that need to be done on a 70-year-old building are never ending, and not only do we have to prioritize what needs to be done first, we also have to prioritize what we have money to do. So if anybody has any questions, wants to join the team, suggestions, all ears. Thank you.
Let's see, our next team that we're going to hear from is UKirk. And we have Sam Kennedy here to give us a report.
Hello, and I'd like to first say, how thankful I am to be part of this church, that you guys have been so hospitable to UKirk and to me for as long as I've been here, so thank you for that. The good news is, right off the bat, I can tell you that number 1 is already done. We've got Nancy Graham. Is she in here right now? Not right now. Oh, no, there she is. Oh, there. And so we've already got that. We can check that right off the list. Doesn't that feel good? We're already done. No, but we had a few other things here. Help with the outreach team. We can add congregational members to the UKirk team, and I think that's something that Nancy and I can work on as we continue to have more UKirk meetings and work on building a kind of a wider leadership base there. We'll provide session information concerning the grant that supports campus ministry. Now, that grant is called the 1001 New Worship Communities Grant, and that's through PC USA. So that's through the Presbyterian Church at large. And I'll be re-qualifying for that, in fact, this month, and should be coming through again for the next year as well. When I do have more, I guess, printed information about the ins and outs and the details of that, I can make those known to the session as well. Mutual participation with congregations downtown. I did have a friend who was running the college program over at the Methodist Church, but she has moved to St. Louis, unfortunately. But I'll look to see, I think the new, her name is Rebecca? I'll think of it. But yes, I'm going to make a contact with her and see if we can I'd like to really do a downtown church praise and worship night. Like a once a month type of a deal where, maybe we could gather in the parking lot or at the parking lot over at the Methodist Church and something. Just have any and all college students that are available and want to come, and we can play music and worship and kind of have a little public worship. And let's see, we will work better as a team to publicize our activities on campus. You'll be seeing updates from me in the newsletters and on our church website. We also have Facebook and Instagram as well, and the Mizzou equivalent of those for Mizzou students. So, any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, it's back.
I would ask to repeat the question. What's the total number of people who participate on a regular basis?
We've got about 5 that come regularly on our Sunday night dinner and dialogues. 5 students. Kathy. Yes.
What is the outreach to other presbyteries and churches within our synod that to recruit from MU, Westminster?
Yeah.
Westminster actually being a former institution of the PC USA.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're working to establish more of a connection there as well with Westminster specifically. I've been working with a lady named Mira for a little bit, but I haven't been in contact with her for a little while, so I need to follow back up on that. Was there...
Is there communication with individual churches stating that we do have a staffed UKirk program within this church, within walking distance of the campus? I know in years past, we have not done that outreach.
Oh, okay.
And so have we decided to embody that proposition?
Yes, and I'm not sure I'm understanding fully your question here, but
I'm just asking, are we publicizing ourselves to other churches within our synod?
Oh, yes.
That we have an active,
yes.
ongoing, and staffed UKirk.
The collegiate UKirk ministry office is, they're aware. They send me people to make contact with through emails so I can contact individual students.
But you do not use you don't do the shout out on our own. There is no shout out from our church to churches such as First Kirkwood in Giddings Lovejoy, such as
I see. Well, I guess not.
Village Presbyterian Church in Kansas City, because we do have quite a few that do attend MU, and their pastors' children, and they never hear from us. Those churches do not hear from us.
The only ones that I know are that I do get emails about certain students from other congregations that are attending, and I contact them personally. I don't know if we have some sort of a shout out that would go out to all those.
That could go to all the churches within our synod. I think at one time we tried to do that, and we did do it.
Okay.
And we actually had campus directors, not ministers, but directors that did actual physical visits, and Presbytery did fund that at times.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll look into that then and see if we can get a larger base to draw from then. Yeah. Anything else? Oh. Oh, yes.
Hello? When we had our church picnic, I think there was something else scheduled for UKirk that night.
We were going to have our normal dinner and dialogues, but instead I encouraged the students. I was unable to attend that night, but I encouraged the students to go to the picnic.
Okay, good. And I was going to say during Lenten season, it seemed like there was something, we had Lenten meals on Wednesdays, but there was some kind of a conflict maybe too. I guess I would ask that. Try to encourage your folks to come to our church things too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In addition to.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And Elijah's right there right now, which is good. But yes, I do tell them about our church events and try to get them more involved in I'd like to see more of them here on Sunday mornings as well. And I've tried to entice them with a Bible school. After that didn't entice them very much though. I don't know. It's weird. Okay, anything else? Oh, there's always food, yeah, that's... All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And our last team that we're going to hear from, Mike Bancroft is the session liaison for worship, but in his stead is the wonderful Richard Bauman, who was the worship committee leader for the last 3 years, so he knows everything.
My mantra has been letting go and let God, but it hasn't worked out so well recently. Okay, we'll be out here in 7 minutes. I was told to keep this moving. So there are 9 things listed there in your packet today, but I want to start off number 1. Encourage our congregation to participate in our services. And I want to acknowledge Jan Berry, our deacon, who started this process, and thank you, Woody, for inviting your wife to take that responsibility. And it was wonderful, wasn't it, to have people from the congregation participating in the service. That was one thing that you wanted to happen. So, and other lay readers, we all speak English, so we can read. And Minute for Missions, that's something else we used to do quite a lot. And keeping it to 1 minute, of course, is difficult, but it lets everybody know what's all going on around here. I know it gets printed, but I know what that's like. I've heard other people say, and I have to write things down myself from all that. You know, you read it on the screen, and oh, I got to make notes of that. But it's hard. There's so much stuff going on that we really do need to appreciate that aspect. And the other thing too was the children's sermon. So wasn't that wonderful this morning that we had Emily to do the children's sermon? And one of the other things is it doesn't have to be Audra every Sunday morning. Let's give her a break. So any of you who school teachers want to talk to children on Sunday morning, do it. So in other words, that's number one, getting more lay membership, encouraging others within the congregation. Let's just don't put all this on the shoulders of our, well, Woody, number one now, but our future interim pastor. So let's get used to, you know, standing up here. Okay, I'm going to skip over to number 3. 2 distinct worship services was from the discernment session. Now, right now, we're only having one service, and that is now at 10:30. We've opened things up thanks to children's and families. We have time for Sunday school now, which is wonderful. Woody has brought us all about sharing our fears. That's been wonderful. And John has been in the Follow Me series, having also. So you got 2 options for Sunday school now. We haven't had that for quite a while. So this is a new thing. So let's take advantage of these things while they exist. So that gets us to this whole aspect of one service. Now, we want more than that, according to the discernment process. I've checked other churches downtown, and we're the only church downtown that has one service. So, First Baptist, they've got a contemporary service at 9:15 and a traditional at 11:15. Missouri Methodist has 3 services. And I just checked with the new rector over at Calvary Episcopal. They have 3 services on Sunday, 8 o'clock, 10:30, and 4:30 in the afternoon. Plus, they have communion at 5:30 every Wednesday afternoon. 4 times to worship in 1 week. So, I think when we think about our new interim pastor, we need to think in terms of broadening our opportunities to worship. So we need to invite friends, of course, to come, but this is the other thing that is important. The other thing I want to mention too is many of us log on to what other congregations are doing, and make note of that. Let the worship team, I'm no longer on the worship team, but let all those people on the worship team know what you appreciate from other churches. I've looked at Prairie Village. Roger Nishioka is a minister, one of the ministers there. They have a number of them, but they have church at 5 o'clock. His church on Antioch is at 5 p.m. So why can't we think about having church at 4:30 or 5 p.m. and include Youth Kirk? Since the students don't like to get up that morning. Well, that's precisely why I'm bringing this up. So this is other things that the worship committee needs to look at, and feedback from all of you. That's what was so great about this discernment process. We learned so much of what you really want. So that is a kind of a highlight here for me in this whole list of things that we consider having 2 distinct at different distinct times. So it doesn't have to be all Sunday morning, obviously. Other churches are doing things at 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's something. Quickly, Fifth Sundays. One's coming up, October 30th. It's a good time to get out those brunch recipes again. And it's also a wonderful time for us to have tables here and to have a kind of a different kind of church service. Not the formal like we had today, of course, but around tables, and John will be preaching that Sunday, and you'll have the Follow Me, which we have purchased for the use for the next year, I think it is. And that has all kind of questions and answer kind of things and getting you all involved in the topic. And I had suggested once before that this be kind of like a, dare I use the word, glorified Sunday school rather than a formal service. And just don't try to do that. Just open it up and have lots of discussion about the topic. So put that on your calendars right away. I'm going to skip down to a healing service. This is something that Ed Hander, who was on the worship committee 6 years ago, we've been trying to get going here at First Pres, and I think after COVID, I think it's very necessary that we have this. And so one of the things I've offered to Woody is that, and he's offered to help with this, is have a Blue Christmas service use the McMullen Chapel. This is our other little jewel here at First Presbyterian that does not get used. And so my proposal, or our proposal, is to have a healing service sometime at the end of the year or sometime. And I know the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. does a blue Christmas, so we could have a blue Christmas tree lit, blue lights or something like that. But it's a chance to heal, and I think that's something else that's necessary for us. And the very last thing, of course, which has already been mentioned, is the pipe organ and restoration thereof. I know it's a large sum, but it's to the glory of God. It's not to our own personal glory, it's to glorify God. And with that in mind, I think I hope we can get a campaign to go, and don't let this resource, which is probably valued at $1.67 million, to go to waste. Coral Ridge Presbyterian in Fort Lauderdale, they have $1 million fund going right now to restore their $6 to $7 billion Rafati organ that they just installed not long ago. So anyway, that's kind of what I have to say. So get in touch with all the worship. I'm filling in today for Beth and Sharon Garrett and Beth Whitaker and Sharon Garrett. They're the co-chairs, and so they asked me if I would fill in for them today. So I hope I represented them well today. And if you have any questions, talk to those members who are currently on the team. Thank you all.
I think he missed his calling to be a minister myself. So basically, you've heard from all the teams. We're going to wrap this up here. Woody's going to say a little prayer. We're all going to go home and eat lunch. But everything that we talked about today costs money. We have a stewardship campaign coming up. Pay attention when they talk to you about that, because if we want to keep living in this large house, it takes large amounts of money. And not, you people who are still here, you know what I'm saying. Anyhow, so everything Session does is going to be with this in mind. Worship God, nurture faith, serve neighbors. So if there are cuts that are going to have to be made, it's going to be with those three things in mind as we go through our budget. I'm going to turn over to Woody now. Thank you all. Am I turned off?
No.
Hello? Thank you, Emily.
Did you have a question?
What is the approximate giving units within our congregation that we're looking at for our stewardship campaign?
If you look on the on the thing about the listing sessions down there, I thought I had it written in there, but I don't. But we can get that number for you. Nobody has it on the top of their brain right now, but. Oh, her question was, how many giving units are there? We'll just have to get you that information. Unless you know it, Paul. 104 pledging units. Okay, another question? We're hearing you.
Okay, I think one of the issues is it's really hard to know the membership of a church. I think we've struggled with this for quite a few years. Not only who do we think are members, but who thinks they are members as well. And we've obviously had quite a few people move out to Lenore who were very active. I don't know what their sense of the relationship of the church is right now, but that seems a pretty fundamental thing that's really tough to get hands around for sure.
Good comment. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else before we close up? Let me say that this beautiful thing was done by Emily. Emily, right here. Oh my gosh, I love it. We are sailing with the Spirit, no doubt about it. Brenda.
I was just going to say that based on the deacon flock lists that I've reviewed, we have probably, I would say, 249 units, pledging units on the records.
249 pledging units on the record. Okay. So we have 104 pledging out of 249. That's a helpful number too. What we're going to hear is the session is going to come back and give you another report, and Alan will be there proposing the budget that we can do for 2023 and how we can do that. So we've got a lot of work to do. You'll be hearing, first of all, from the Stewardship Committee. That'll be coming up, but before the year comes to an end, we're going to meet again and follow up on this. So if you have other questions, other comments from today, you can give them in writing. We'll take anything, anytime. You know the people who are in charge of the teams. Talk to them. We want to keep hearing you. That hasn't stopped. They want to hear from you. So they would also like for you to join them. So get in touch with them. Anything else today? If you can still stand up, we're going to adjourn. And some of you, it's just your spirits that are going to have to rise up in this moment. And let's close this time. Let's adjourn this meeting, first of all, officially for our clerk. We're adjourned with this prayer. Let's pray. Loving God, we are thankful for this time together. We're thankful for the excitement, for the commitment that has been shown in all of the work that has done to bring forth this day. We are thankful for every member of the church who is here, who cares deeply about what happens with us together. And we all come to you, loving God, saying that we are here and we want to be your people in this place, and we need you to help guide us so that we can be the very best that we can be right here and now. So bless us now on our way, we pray, through Christ. Amen. Mm-hmm.